What's up, YouTube? This is Dave from North Lake Aquatics. We're working on the 55-gallon today. We're going to be doing some water changes, feeding. Haven't fed them yet. So let's kind of get into it and go from there. So generally for my feeding, I have a few different options that I use to feed these guys. So this one is just a Tupperware. These are shrimp pellets and freeze-dried bloodworms. I have a big Tupperware of this. So this is just extra stuff that I usually have laying around. I tend to throw that into, actually I still have the things here, so this is just extra of what I use. But there's bloodworms right there, and then I just use these shrimp pellets. Right, and I just put them together just for their diet. So I also use, in this guy here, this container, so these are all pellets, and they're all small pellets. Right, use omega-1 cichlid pellets, and then I have Northfin that I use. And I just kind of mix them together, just to put them together. I'm not sponsored or paid for by any of these brands. I just pick them up at the local fish store. So generally what I do is I just have kind of a little measuring cup. I put into a cup. I just take a few shrimp pellets because they're good for the pleco that's on the bottom. And a few of the fish do eat these, but not very much, not too many. I find if I put too many shrimp pellets or bottom feeder pellets on the bottom, they don't get eaten very much. But they tend to really enjoy the these pellets, these omega-1s and Northfin. So I usually give them a decent amount. And by decent amount, right, I don't use too much. Like you can kind of see in the bottom on the cup, there's maybe fills up the cup bottom here. I don't give them too much. The problem is if you overfeed them, then it's a big mess to clean up, which doesn't matter too much today because we will be cleaning out this tank. So, but this is what I use. I try to keep a varying balance. The next thing you need to get is the top fin veggie, and add some of that in there. So that's gonna be the next thing that I get. That'll probably be tomorrow, just to give it more of a balanced diet. Of course, the other thing I use too is these are flakes. I just use flakes, tropical flakes, for my fry. I crush them up and then they eat some of it, but right now they're still so small that they don't eat too much. So it gets pretty messy in the fry tank. So this is my 55-gallon tank, and inside I have a male dragon blood firefin. I have 6 blue haps, electric blue haps, juveniles. And I have 5 dolphins. They're on the side there. 5 blue dolphins. Now these guys, oh, and I have a whole bunch of, hybrid fish, which I'm not really sure. I think it's a cross between a blue regal and something else. Before I start cleaning out the tank, I'll let them, give them about 10-20 minutes before I begin to siphon the gravel, do the complete water change. So, like I was saying before, I have a wooden cover here which holds my lights, and they, as you can see, it's kind of started to warp. I mean, it's getting a little brown. Even on the bottom, you can see some mold has started to form. Wood is definitely not the right way to go. I had some extra wood lying around in my house from the previous owners, so I figured I'd chop it to size and see if I could make something out of it. Well, No matter what type of wood you use, it's always going to work. So that's exactly what it did. I'm using a power head on the left. Just a generic power head, I don't even know. I got it at the bargain bin on the local pet store. They're selling it for nothing. So I ended up picking it up, and I just use it as a on the top to disturb the water, so then that way you can see on the top that there's good gas exchange. These guys are so small, I don't think it really matters too much. I use a 50 Aqua Clear, which I normally use I have a 30 Aqua Clear 2 that hangs on the back beside it. Right now it is being used in my other juvenile tank because I doubled up the air filters on my 60 gallon. So I'm waiting for a couple of filters to come into the mail right now. So unfortunately I have to use just the 50, which kind of does the trick. Not very well, but as long as I clean the tank, I usually clean it about once a week. So these guys are still eating. Yeah, they seem to be pretty hungry. And then just for decorations, I have a couple artificial plants that I put there. They've already uprooted a couple of the artificial plants I can see. And I just have a rock in the middle. The stand itself, it's just a bunch of 2x6s that I put together a couple of years ago. And these fish seem to like this 55 gallon quite a bit, so which is good. It needs some modification. I need to get that extra Aqua Clear filter back. It would be really nice to get a background for it. Be kind of nice just on the eyes. The gravel, I was never a huge fan of blue gravel, and then it's got the white and purple gravel as well. I mean, it's okay. For cleaning, it's could be a little better, but for a juvenile tank, I'm not too concerned. I use a 300 watt heater, and I have baseboard heating along the side that I use. Today it's very cold though. Today it's got to be minus 25 or so, so it's actually nice and warm in this room. I just have a small room that I keep all these fish tanks in, and I use baseboard heating. I'm gonna try to upgrade to dehumidifier, take out some of the water, and bring in some heat, so then that way I don't use the heaters as much. But even in minus 25 Celsius weather, I still need heaters in there. So, and they go off quite a bit, which is unfortunate, but there's enough drafts that come in from the outside that really affect the tank and affect these guys. So one thing I can't stress enough, if you're getting into fish keeping, or if you're already in, is to do a regular maintenance care. So what I do for myself is every day of the week, usually what I'll do is I'll take one tank and I will give it a water change, care for the fish, move ornaments around, clean the filter, move the power head, you know, check the temperature. Just every day I like to take one tank and just try to do what I can. And usually what I'll do even on that same day is, for example, I'll build a new cover for it, or I'll move wires around or clean things up. But it's very important as a fish keeper to do a regular maintenance on your tanks. So if you don't have a steady schedule that you stick to, your fish are eventually going to be lacking in care. They're not going to grow properly. They're not going to be happy. These are things that, as you're continuing to do them, or you want to start out, you got to make sure that you at least set 1 or 2 days aside to look after the tank. I know it seems like a lot, but if you have nice fish or whatever, I mean, you could spend, for somebody that just does this for fun as a hobby, you could spend probably an hour or 2 hours of your day and just looking after the fish, which is not a lot to ask for in the grand scheme of things. But it does get messy sometimes, and it's very important to do so. Alright, so I've taken off my lid and I've taken off the lights and everything. So what I generally like to do is, I have an algae scrubber. Right, it's just a scrubber that I like to use. I have my siphon tube, which is kind of like the bucket brigade, because I also have a bucket that I use. So generally when I start cleaning on my 55, I like to take my algae scrubber and I just like to get the glass. Right, during this time I actually like to leave the hang on back filter on. I like to leave everything on just because it can get sucked up. It gets moved by the power head and basically gets sucked up, which is perfect. Make sure you get everything. Get a good chunk of that back glass. Generally I do this every week, so even if I don't catch everything, then it's still okay. Here are the plecos on that other side, so we'll leave that for now. Now next up I usually take my siphon tube. So now that the siphon's going, I like to just kind of get inside the rocks. Can't really see it too well, but it's sucking up all the poop from the bottom, all the fish poop. So generally on this 55 gallon, I go about 3 pails full. That brings it just over half. And then that way I fill it up upstairs, just about half. And gives them a nice big water change. So just going back, making sure I kind of get into all the rocks. The first 2 pail loads, I usually get all the poop from everywhere. And then the 3rd bucket, I just siphon out the water. Pretty standard, straightforward. Right. Let's also turn off the water. That's kind of an important step that I forgot. Whoops. But at least I remembered to turn it off. No harm, no foul. Okay. So first bucket full is done. I'm just gonna quickly, I have a drain downstairs that I can quickly rinse this off in. So before I start putting water back in, I just want to show how much exactly I took out from the 55 gallon. So it's roughly 30 to 40%. Right, the water was up here and I took off about that. So I wouldn't say exactly half, but pretty dang close. So now I filled the water back up. Took about 3 buckets going up and down the stairs, which is always fun. So now generally what I like to do is I have the Aqua Clear 50. So I like to take the media out. And as you can see, it could use a little bit of cleaning. What I like to do is to give a rinse to the sponge carbon, and then I leave the bio balls, which is the top tier right here. See how it's super dirty? I usually like to just leave that pretty dirty, but you can see on the bottom here too, it's a little bit of food. So let's go ahead and bring this upstairs. So I brought my filter upstairs. Unfortunately, my phone died before I could finish everything off, but this is my hang-on back filter. So this was the sponge. I just gave it a rinse. So basically I just take my kitchen tap and then got a nice little spray feature, and I just use that to clean the plastic compartment, the sponge, and the carbon, which has also been cleaned. And I tend to leave the bio balls. I'll leave this film on there because that's good bacteria that we want to keep. So I'll assemble it all here. Everything's kind of put back into place. Hard to do that with the camera. Backwards. Okay. Be a little wet bringing it, but so anyway, I just slide it back into its media insert. There's a little tab that it connects down into. Cover goes back on. The lid's already got it back up and ready. So next up, I just have the little switch on my power bar. That goes back on. Heater's back up and running. You can hear the power head's going again. Go ahead and bring that guy up. Make sure he's getting the water pretty well. Fortunately, this hood has seen better days. There we go. We have decent movement on the top. We have our lights back. Let's go ahead and dim that down a bit. So now the lights are back. Filter isn't going yet, so a lot of the times, so it wants to go. What I normally do is I'll take a cup, and I usually just scoop some water, throw it into the hang-on back filter just to kind of get it going. As you can see, the impeller is probably seen better days. So a lot of the times I find with these aqua clears is that once I plug it in, back in, the impellers don't want to go. And basically I just take the siphon tube up here off, stick my finger down into where the impeller sits, and then I usually push it down or give it a jiggle, and then eventually it starts to want to go. It's been doing that for a while, and I mean, every month I take apart the impeller, I take apart the motor, and I get into there and I clean it, and I still get that problem. So I mean, that's just the way that I do it. There might be a better way to fix it, I'm not sure. Now it's strong again. So that's just my experience with these aqua clears. These are definitely my favorite hang-on back filters because they're just, I've just been using them for a really long time, and for me they're easy to use. But I've always had problems with the impellers and the motors. Anyway, just a quick jiggle on the back and usually it gets going, so that's what I had to do. Also, a few cups of water, if you throw that into the case back here, it usually helps the motor to get going. So probably a me thing, but that's just what I do. I had that same problem again. So the power head's running decently smooth. The lights are up, fish are good, hood's on. I have an extra piece of wood that I generally use
to fit back here. Just kind of, just as a stop, basically.